I was standing in the jewelry store, the velvet box in my hand, about to buy a $10,000 gift for my daughter's wedding when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Don't go to the wedding. Run." My heart skipped. I stared at the screen, the words burning into my mind, the ring box suddenly heavy in my palm. I called the number, and what I heard on the other end was chaos. Screaming, shouting, and a voice I recognized as my sister's, begging me not to trust anyone. "Michael, please, listen to me. Don't go. They're not who you think they are." The line went dead, leaving me standing in the middle of the store, my mind racing. I tried to call back, but the number was disconnected. The saleswoman asked if I was all right, and I forced a smile, nodding as I paid for the ring. But inside, I was shaken. I'd spent months planning for this day, wanting everything to be perfect for my daughter, Emma. She was my only child, the light of my life, and I'd promised her mother, before she passed, that I'd give Emma the wedding of her dreams. But ever since she got engaged to Ethan, things had changed. His family was wealthy, controlling, and obsessed with appearances. Emma, once so close, had grown distant, her calls less frequent, her laughter forced. The wedding planning had been a whirlwind of demands, expensive venues, designer dresses, and a guest list full of people I barely knew. I'd paid for everything, wanting Emma to have the best, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. My sister, Sarah, had always been the skeptic in the family, the one who saw through people's masks. She'd warned me more than once, "Money changes people, Michael. Be careful." I'd brushed her off, telling myself I was just being paranoid. But now, with her voice echoing in my ear and the memory of that text burning in my mind, I wasn't so sure. That night, I called Sarah. She answered on the first ring, her voice shaking. "Don't go, Michael. I heard Ethan's family talking. They're planning something. They want your money, not you. Please, just trust me." I sat in the dark, the ring box on the table, my mind spinning. Was my sister overreacting, or was she the only one seeing the truth? I spent the night wrestling with doubt, replaying every conversation, every strange look, every time Emma had brushed off my questions about the wedding. In the morning, I made a decision. I would skip the wedding, no matter how much it hurt. I sent Emma a message, "I love you, but I can't be there. I hope you understand." The response was instant. Calls, texts, voicemails, all from Emma, Ethan, and his family, their anger and confusion pouring through the phone. I let the calls go unanswered, my resolve hardening with every ring. I knew I'd done the right thing, but the pain was sharp, the silence in the house deafening. As I sat by the window, watching the sun rise over the city, I realized that sometimes the hardest thing in the world is listening to the people who love you most. The real story, I knew, was only just beginning. The hours after I sent that message to Emma were some of the longest of my life. I sat in the kitchen, the untouched ring box on the table, my phone buzzing with a relentless stream of calls and texts. Emma's first message was a simple, "Dad, what's going on? Please call me." Then came Ethan's, more forceful, "You're embarrassing us. You need to be here." My ex-wife chimed in, her tone sharp and accusing, "You're ruining your daughter's big day. How could you?" I let the phone ring, my resolve hardening with every unanswered call. I thought of Sarah's warning, the panic in her voice, and the chaos I'd heard on the other end of that call. I replayed every conversation I'd had with Emma over the past year, every time she'd brushed off my questions about the wedding, every time she'd changed the subject when I asked about Ethan's family. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I'd ignored, how many red flags I'd chosen not to see because I wanted so badly for Emma to be happy. As the day of the wedding approached, the family group chat exploded. Emma's cousins asked if I was sick, if I'd had a breakdown, if I was trying to make a statement. Ethan's family was less subtle, sending messages that ranged from passive-aggressive to outright hostile. "We always knew you'd let her down," one aunt wrote. "You never belonged in this family." I read the messages in silence, my anger simmering beneath the surface. I wanted to defend myself, to explain, but I knew it would only make things worse. Instead, I called Sarah, my voice shaking. "Did I do the right thing?" She didn't hesitate. "You did, Michael. I know it hurts, but you listened. You trusted me. That's more than most people would do." Her words were a balm, a reminder that I wasn't alone. The day of the wedding arrived, and I spent it in the garden, pruning roses and listening to the distant sound of church bells from across town. I imagined Emma walking down the aisle, her face radiant, her heart full of hope. I wondered if she would look for me in the crowd, if she would feel my absence, or if she would be too caught up in the whirlwind of the day to notice. That evening, I watched the live stream for a few minutes, the screen flickering with images of laughter and champagne, Ethan's family toasting to a future built on appearances and money. I closed the laptop, the sound of applause echoing in the empty house, and poured myself a glass of wine. The next morning, the call started again, but this time, the tone had changed. Emma's voice was frantic, her messages full of regret and confusion. "Dad, please, I need to talk to you. Something happened. I'm so sorry." I let the phone ring, my heart pounding. I knew the truth was finally coming to light, and that the real test was just beginning. The pain of missing my daughter's wedding was sharp, but the lesson was clear. Sometimes, the hardest thing in the world is saying no to the people you love, and trusting that, in the end, it's the only way to save them. The days after the wedding were a blur of unanswered calls and sleepless nights, the silence in my house broken only by the occasional message from Sarah, checking in to make sure I was holding up. I tried to keep busy, fixing things around the house, volunteering at the local food bank, anything to keep my mind off the ache of missing Emma's big day. But the pain lingered, a dull throb that refused to fade. Then, one afternoon, as I was pruning the roses, my phone buzzed with a message from Emma. "Dad, please. I need to talk to you." "I'm sorry." I hesitated, my heart pounding, before finally calling her back. Her voice was raw, trembling with fear and regret. "Dad, you were right. I should have listened to you. Ethan's family. They tried to get me to sign papers at the reception. They wanted me to convince you to invest in their business. When I refused, they turned on me. They said I was ungrateful, that I was just like you, too stubborn to see what was best for the family." I listened in stunned silence as Emma recounted the chaos that had erupted after the ceremony, Ethan's father cornering her in the hallway, his voice cold and threatening, her new in-laws whispering behind her back, the guests growing uncomfortable as the truth began to leak out. "I tried to call you, but you wouldn't answer. I was so scared, Dad. I didn't know what to do." I felt a surge of guilt, but also a fierce pride. You did the right thing, Emma. You stood up for yourself. I'm proud of you. She sobbed, her relief palpable. I'm so sorry, Dad. I let money blind me. I let them turn me against you. I reassured her, my own voice thick with emotion. We all make mistakes, Emma. What matters is what we do next. As the days passed, the fallout from the wedding spread through the family and the community. Ethan's family tried to spin the story, blaming me for the disaster, but the truth was out. Friends and relatives reached out to offer support, their respect for my decision growing with every new detail that emerged. Sarah became the bridge between me and Emma, her wisdom and courage helping us rebuild the trust that had been broken. You saved me, Aunt Sarah, Emma said one night over dinner, her gratitude shining in her eyes. If you hadn't warned Dad, I don't know what would have happened. Sarah smiled, her pride clear. Sometimes, the people who love you most are the ones who see the truth you can't. The real lesson, I realized, was not just about money or betrayal, but about the power of listening, to your instincts, to your family, to the quiet warnings that can save you from disaster. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, I believed we were finally on the right path. The next chapter would be about healing, about forgiveness, and about the courage to build a future on trust, not money. The fallout from the wedding disaster rippled through every corner of our lives, the story spreading faster than I could have imagined. Emma moved back into her old room, her suitcase still half-packed, her eyes red from crying. She spent her days in a fog, fielding calls from friends who wanted the gossip and relatives who offered sympathy but little else. Ethan's family, once so eager to claim her as their own, now treated her like a pariah, blaming her for the ruined celebration and the business deal that never materialized. You embarrassed us, Ethan's mother hissed in a voicemail. You and your father are nothing but trouble. I listened to the message with a mix of anger and relief. Relief that Emma was finally free from their grip, anger that it had taken so much pain to get here. Sarah visited often, her presence a comfort to both of us. She brought groceries, cooked meals, and sat with Emma late into the night, listening as my daughter poured out her regrets and fears. I thought I was doing the right thing, Emma confessed one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought if I just went along, everything would work out. But I lost myself, Dad. I lost you. I hugged her, my own eyes wet. You didn't lose me, Emma. I was always here. I just needed you to see the truth for yourself. As the days passed, the community's reaction shifted. Neighbors who had once envied the lavish wedding now offered quiet support, their respect for Emma growing as she faced the consequences of her choices. I found myself invited to more dinners, more gatherings, the old wounds slowly healing as people saw the strength it took to walk away from what wasn't right. Emma started volunteering at the local shelter, her confidence returning as she helped others find their footing. She and Sarah became closer than ever, their bond a lifeline in the storm. Aunt Sarah saved me, Emma said one night, her gratitude shining in her eyes. She saw what I couldn't. Sarah smiled, her pride clear. You saved yourself, Emma. You listened. That's more than most people ever do. The real revenge, I realized, was not in Ethan's family's suffering, but in Emma's survival, their ability to forgive, to rebuild, and to find joy in the aftermath of betrayal. The pain of the past would never fully disappear, but it no longer defined us. Instead, we chose to remember the lessons learned, that dignity is worth fighting for, that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, and that the truest legacy is the family you build, the lives you touch, and the courage to hope. The journey was not over, but for the first time, I believed we were finally on the right path. The next chapter would be about healing, about hope, and about the courage to keep moving forward, no matter how many times life tried to break us. The weeks that followed were a slow, uncertain climb out of the wreckage, each day a test of patience and faith. Emma spent her mornings volunteering at the shelter, her afternoons helping Sarah in the garden, and her evenings curled up on the porch with a book, the silence between us now comfortable rather than strained. I watched her transformation with a mix of pride and sorrow, my heart aching for the girl she'd been and the woman she was becoming. The pain of the wedding still lingered, old friends who no longer called, social media posts that stung like fresh wounds, the occasional run-in with someone from Ethan's family who couldn't resist a parting shot. But Emma faced it all with a quiet dignity, her head held high, her eyes clear. "I can't change what happened," she told me one night, her voice steady. "But I can choose what I do next." I nodded, my own resolve hardening. "That's all any of us can do, Emma. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence." As the days grew longer and the air warmed, the house began to feel like home again. Sarah became a fixture at our table, her laughter and wisdom a balm to our battered spirits. She and Emma spent hours talking about everything and nothing, their bond deepening with every shared secret and inside joke. I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't in years, telling stories of my own mistakes, my own regrets, and the lessons I'd learned about love, money, and the dangers of letting pride blind you to the truth. Emma listened, her questions honest and unguarded. "Do you ever wish you'd done things differently, Dad?" she asked one evening as we watched the sun set over the garden. I thought about it, then shook my head. I wish I'd listened to my instincts sooner. I wish I'd trusted the people who loved me, even when it was hard. But I don't regret standing up for myself, or for you. Emma smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you for not giving up on me. The real revenge, I realized, was not in Ethan's family's downfall, but in our survival, the ability to forgive, to rebuild, and to find joy in the aftermath of betrayal. The pain of the past would never fully disappear, but it no longer defined us. Instead, we chose to remember the lessons learned, that dignity is worth fighting for, that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, and that the truest legacy is the family you build, the lives you touch, and the courage to hope. The journey was not over, but for the first time, I believed we were finally on the right path. The next chapter would be about hope, about legacy, and about the courage to keep moving forward, no matter what storms might come. As spring settled in and the world outside our windows turned green and alive, I found myself reflecting on the strange, twisted path that had brought us here. The pain of Emma's wedding had faded, but the lessons lingered, sharper than ever. One afternoon, as we sat on the porch watching the rain, Sarah turned to me, her voice gentle but firm. "You know, Michael, money isn't evil. But in the wrong hands, it can destroy everything good." I nodded, thinking of Ethan's family, their obsession with appearances, their willingness to use Emma as a pawn, their belief that everything and everyone had a price. "I thought I was giving Emma the world," I admitted, my voice thick. "But all I did was make her a target." Emma squeezed my hand, her eyes full of understanding. "You did what you thought was right, Dad. I let myself get blinded by the promise of a perfect life. I thought money would fix everything, but it just made things worse." Sarah smiled, her pride clear. "The real gift you gave her was the courage to walk away." As the days passed, Emma and I talked more openly about the role money had played in our lives. We remembered the lean years after my wife died, the sacrifices we'd made, the way we'd always managed to find joy in the little things: a picnic in the park, a homemade birthday cake, a quiet evening spent reading together. "Those were the best times," Emma said one night, her voice wistful. "I wish I'd realized it sooner." I hugged her, my own heart aching with regret and gratitude. We can't change the past, but we can choose what matters now. The real revenge, I realized, was not in Ethan's family's downfall, but in our survival, the ability to forgive, to rebuild, and to find joy in the aftermath of betrayal. The pain of the past would never fully disappear, but it no longer defined us. Instead, we chose to remember the lessons learned, that dignity is worth fighting for, that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, and that the truest legacy is the family you build, the lives you touch, and the courage to hope. As summer approached, Emma found a new job at a local nonprofit, her passion for helping others reignited. She and Sarah started a community garden, inviting neighbors to join them in planting, harvesting, and sharing the bounty. The project brought new friends, new laughter, and a sense of purpose that money could never buy. I watched Emma blossom, her confidence and joy returning with every seed she planted. The journey was not over, but for the first time, I believed we were finally on the right path. The next chapter would be about hope, about legacy, and about the courage to keep moving forward, no matter what storms might come. Summer brought a new rhythm to our lives, the days stretching long and golden as Emma and I settled into a peace we'd never known before. The community garden flourished, rows of tomatoes and beans climbing toward the sun, neighbors stopping by to help weed or share a story. Emma's laughter returned, bright and unguarded, as she worked alongside Sarah and the other volunteers, her hands in the dirt, her heart finally free from the weight of old expectations. I found myself waking each morning with a sense of purpose, eager to see what the day would bring. The pain of the past lingered, but it was now a lesson, not a prison. One afternoon, as we harvested the first cucumbers of the season, Emma turned to me, her eyes shining. "Dad, I never thought I'd be happy again. I thought I needed a big wedding, a fancy house, all those things Ethan's family promised. But this is real. This is enough." I hugged her, my own eyes wet. "You found your way, Emma. That's all I ever wanted." The garden became a gathering place, a sanctuary for anyone who needed a fresh start. We hosted potlucks, movie nights, and even a small summer festival, the laughter and music echoing through the neighborhood. Sarah, ever the wise mentor, watched it all with quiet pride. "You see, Michael, money can buy a lot, but it can't buy this." As the weeks passed, Emma's confidence grew. She started teaching classes at the community center, helping other young women find their voices and their strength. She spoke openly about her mistakes, her regrets, and the lessons she'd learned about love, money, and the importance of listening to the people who truly care. The community rallied around her, their respect for her honesty and resilience growing with every new story she shared. I found myself invited to more gatherings, more dinners, the old wounds slowly healing as people saw the strength it took to walk away from what wasn't right. But even as our new life blossomed, the shadow of Ethan's family lingered. Rumors spread that their business was failing, that the lavish lifestyle they'd built on appearances and manipulation was finally crumbling. Emma heard from old friends, some apologizing for not believing her, others asking for advice on how to escape their own toxic situations. She listened, offered support, and reminded them that the hardest part of starting over was believing you deserved better. The real revenge, I realized, was not in Ethan's family's downfall, but in our survival, the ability to forgive, to rebuild, and to find joy in the aftermath of betrayal. The journey was not over, but for the first time, I believed we were finally on the right path. The next chapter would be about hope, about legacy, and about the courage to keep moving forward, no matter what storms might come. By late summer, the garden was overflowing, and so was our sense of belonging. Emma's work at the community center had blossomed into a full-time role, and the women she mentored often stopped by the house, bringing their children and their stories. Sarah became the heart of our gatherings, her wisdom and humor drawing people together in a way that made even the shyest neighbor feel at home. I watched it all with a quiet pride, the pain of the past now a distant echo, replaced by the joy of seeing Emma truly happy for the first time in years. As the harvest approached, Emma suggested we host a celebration, a simple meal in the garden, everyone bringing a dish, no fancy invitations or expensive gifts, just gratitude and laughter. The idea caught on, and soon the whole neighborhood was buzzing with excitement. On the day of the celebration, the garden was alive with color and music, tables piled high with homemade food, children chasing each other between the rows of sunflowers. Emma stood at the center, her face radiant, her voice strong as she welcomed everyone. "This isn't just about the garden," she said. "It's about second chances, about learning from our mistakes, and about the people who help us find our way." I raised a glass, my heart full. To family, by blood, by choice, by the courage to forgive. The crowd cheered, the moment a turning point not just for us, but for everyone who had ever struggled to let go of old pain. As the sun set and the lanterns flickered to life, I found myself sitting with Sarah, her hand warm in mine. "You saved us, you know," I said quietly. "If you hadn't sent that warning, I would have walked right into disaster." Sarah smiled, her eyes shining. "You saved yourself, Michael. You listened. That's more than most people ever do." Emma joined us, her laughter ringing out as she hugged us both. "I'm grateful for every mistake, every hard lesson. They brought me here." The celebration lasted long into the night, the garden filled with music, stories, and the kind of hope that only comes from surviving the worst together. The real revenge, I realized, was not in Ethan's family's downfall, but in the life we'd built from the ashes, a life defined by love, respect, and the courage to start again. The journey was not over, but for the first time, I knew we were finally home. The next chapter would be about legacy, about passing on the lessons we'd learned, and about the quiet strength it takes to keep moving forward, no matter what storms might come. As the leaves began to turn and the air grew crisp, I found myself thinking more and more about the future, about what kind of legacy I wanted to leave behind, not just for Emma, but for everyone who had found a home in our little corner of the world. The garden, once a symbol of survival, had become a place of learning and laughter, a living testament to the power of second chances. Emma's support group flourished, the women she'd helped now helping others, their stories weaving a tapestry of hope that stretched far beyond our backyard. Sarah, ever the wise mentor, suggested we start a new tradition, a family journal where each of us could write down our hopes, regrets, and promises for the future. "So we never forget what we learned," she said, her eyes shining. The idea caught on, and soon the journal was filled with confessions, apologies, and dreams. Emma wrote about her journey from shame to pride, her gratitude for the family that had stood by her when she'd lost her way. I wrote about the pain of betrayal, the joy of forgiveness, and the lesson that money, in the wrong hands, can destroy even the strongest bonds. "But love," I wrote, "is the only thing that endures." As the first frost dusted the garden, we gathered around the fire pit, the journal at the center of the circle. Each of us read a passage, our voices trembling with emotion. Sarah's entry was a quiet promise to always speak the truth, even when it hurt. Lisa and Mark wrote about the importance of kindness, of never letting pride get in the way of love. The children, their eyes wide, shared their own hopes, of adventures, of kindness, of always coming home. The night was filled with laughter and tears, the kind that lingers long after the fire has died. But even as we celebrated, the shadow of Ethan's family lingered. Rumors spread that their business had finally collapsed, their fortune lost to bad investments and broken trust. Emma heard from old friends, some seeking forgiveness, others asking for advice. She listened, offered support, and reminded them that the hardest part of starting over was believing you deserved better. The real revenge, I realized, was not in Ethan's family's downfall, but in the life we'd built, a life defined by love, respect, and the courage to hope. The journey was almost over, but the promise of tomorrow was brighter than ever. The next chapter would be about passing on the lessons we'd learned, about teaching the next generation that dignity is worth fighting for, that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, and that the truest legacy is the family you build, the lives you touch, and the courage to begin again. Winter crept in quietly, the first snow dusting the garden and the woods beyond, turning our little world into something out of a storybook. The house was warm, filled with the scent of cinnamon and pine, the laughter of children, and the low hum of voices sharing stories by the fire. Emma's support group met weekly now, the living room crowded with women who had found their strength and their voices, each one a testament to the power of second chances. Sarah, ever the heart of our family, organized a holiday dinner, inviting neighbors, friends, and anyone who needed a place to belong. The table was long, the food simple but plentiful, and the conversation rich with gratitude and hope. After dinner, as the fire crackled and the snow fell softly outside, Emma stood and read a passage from the family journal. "We've learned that money can be a blessing or a curse, that love is the only thing that endures, and that the people who truly care will always find a way to reach you, even if it's just a warning text at the right moment." The room was silent, every face reflecting the truth of her words. I looked around at the family I'd fought so hard to protect, the friends who had become family, and felt a peace settle over me that I hadn't known in years. As the night wore on, I found myself sitting with Sarah on the porch, the cold air sharp but invigorating. She handed me a mug of tea, her eyes full of pride. "You did it, Michael. You listened. You trusted your instincts, and your family. That's all any of us can do." I nodded, my heart full. "I just wish I'd listened sooner. I wish I'd trusted you from the start." Sarah smiled, her hand warm in mine. "We all learn in our own time. The important thing is that you learned." The next morning, as the sun rose over the snow-covered fields, I gathered the family for one last tradition. We wrote new entries in the journal, each of us promising to carry the lessons of the past into the future. Emma wrote about forgiveness, about the courage to walk away from what isn't right, and the strength to build something better. I wrote about hope, about the quiet power of listening to the people who love you, and about the promise to never let money, or pride, come between us again. The real revenge, I realized, was not in Ethan's family's downfall, but in the life we'd built from the ashes, a life defined by love, respect, and the courage to start again. The journey was almost over, but the promise of tomorrow was brighter than ever. The family I'd fought so hard to protect was finally whole, and the peace I'd found was now a gift we all shared. The new year arrived with a quiet sense of hope, the world outside our windows blanketed in snow, the air crisp and full of promise. Emma and I spent the first morning of January walking through the garden, the ground frozen but the sky bright, our breath clouding in the cold. The pain of the past year felt distant now, softened by the steady work of forgiveness and the warmth of family. Sarah joined us, her laughter echoing through the trees as she recounted stories from her own wild youth, reminding us that every mistake is just another step on the path to wisdom. Inside, the house was alive with the sounds of life. Children playing, the kettle whistling, the low hum of conversation as friends and neighbors stopped by to share a cup of coffee and a story. As the days grew longer, the family journal became a cherished ritual. Each Sunday, we gathered in the living room, reading old entries and adding new ones, hopes for the future, confessions of fear, promises to do better. Emma's words were always honest, her gratitude for second chances shining through every line. "I used to think money was the answer to everything," she wrote. "Now I know that love, respect, and the courage to listen are worth more than any fortune." I added my own reflections, my handwriting shaky but my heart steady. "I am proud of the family we have become. I am grateful for the peace we have found. I promise to keep this home a place of love, respect, and second chances." The real test came when Ethan's family tried to reach out, their business in ruins, their pride finally broken. They sent a letter, full of apologies and requests for help. Emma read it in silence, her face unreadable. "What do you want to do?" I asked, my voice gentle. She shook her head. "I wish them well, but I can't go back. I can forgive, but I won't forget." I nodded, pride swelling in my chest. "That's all any of us can do, Emma. Move forward, and never let the past steal your future." As winter melted into spring, the family's bond grew stronger. We celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and the small victories that come from living honestly. The pain of the past would never fully disappear, but it no longer defined us. Instead, we chose to remember the lessons learned, that dignity is worth fighting for, that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, and that the truest legacy is the family you build, the lives you touch, and the courage to hope. The journey was almost over, but the promise of tomorrow was brighter than ever. Spring arrived with a gentle rush, the garden bursting into color as Emma and I prepared for the first family gathering of the new season. The house was alive with the scent of fresh bread and blooming lilacs, the laughter of children echoing through open windows, and the low hum of conversation as friends and neighbors arrived with dishes to share. Sarah was the first to arrive, her arms full of wildflowers, her smile as bright as the morning sun. "You did it, Michael," she whispered as she hugged me. "You listened. You trusted your instincts, and your family." I smiled, my heart full. "I couldn't have done it without you, Sarah. You saved us all." As the day unfolded, the family gathered in the garden, the table crowded with food, the air filled with stories and laughter. Emma stood to give a toast, her voice steady and clear. This year taught me that money can be a blessing or a curse, but love and gratitude are the real treasures. I'm grateful for every lesson, every mistake, and every second chance. The family raised their glasses, the promise of tomorrow shining in every face. After lunch, we gathered around the old journal, each of us adding a new entry. Hopes for the future, promises to ourselves and each other, confessions of fear and gratitude. I wrote simply, I am proud of the family we have become. I am grateful for the peace we have found. I promise to keep this home a place of love, respect, and second chances. The children buried the box beneath the old oak, their laughter ringing out as they chased each other through the grass. As the sun set and the sky turned lavender and gold, we sat on the porch, the world quiet and still. Emma leaned her head on my shoulder, her voice soft. Thank you for never giving up on me, Dad. Thank you for listening. I hugged her, my own eyes wet. You never left, Emma. You just needed to find your way home. The pain of the past would never fully disappear, but it no longer defined us. Instead, we chose to remember the hope, the courage, and the forgiveness that had carried us through. As the stars appeared overhead and the farm settled into peace, I closed my eyes, grateful for the journey and ready for whatever tomorrow might bring, knowing that, at last, our family's legacy would endure for generations to come. The real revenge was never about making others suffer, but about building a life worth living, one day at a time, and teaching those you love that the greatest wealth is found in the hearts you heal and the hope you inspire.